Philadelphia. 1869, a sewer crew broke through a brick wall 60 feet below Chestnut Street and stopped walking. The tunnel they had entered was not on any city map. The walls were cut stone, not poured concrete, not laid brick, cut stone, fitted without mortar, in blocks a single worker could not lift alone. The ceiling cleared their heads by 8 feet. They measured the doorframe at the far end. It was 14 feet wide. The foreman, a man named Patrick Hearns, sent 3 workers back for lanterns. He stood in the passage for what he later described as a very long time before any of them spoke. The official report filed with the Philadelphia Bureau of Public Works 6 days later contains one line about this discovery. It describes the passage as a pre-existing drainage structure of unknown origin and recommends its permanent closure. It was sealed with concrete by the end of that month. Hearns filed a supplemental report. It was never recorded. The official record calls it a drainage structure. Here is what the official record does not mention. The passage Hearns entered showed no drain channels, no pipes, no slope. The floor was flat, level to within a fraction of an inch, according to the one measurement Hearns managed to write down before the site was sealed. There was no evidence of water flow, no silt, no mineral deposit, no erosion pattern of any kind. Patrick Hearns was not an excitable man. He was not a drifter or a drunk. He had overseen 14 major excavation projects for the city of Philadelphia over the prior 11 years. He had signed off on structural assessments for 3 major bridge foundations. His professional record was without incident. Within 3 weeks of filing his supplemental report, Hearns was removed from his position without a stated cause. Within 4 months, he had left Philadelphia entirely. His supplemental report has never been located in the city's public archive. The Bureau of Public Works lists it as not received. He was 41 years old. Before we go further, if you find these buried investigations as compelling as I do, hit subscribe so the next one reaches you when it drops. The algorithm tends to suppress this kind of research unless you specifically tell it otherwise. Now back to what was sealed beneath Philadelphia, and why it was not the only city where this happened. To understand what Patrick Hearns found, we have to go back not just a few decades. We have to go back to the period between roughly 1790 and 1880, when cities across the eastern United States were expanding their underground infrastructure for the first time. This is what the official history tells us, that urban sewers, tunnels, and utility passages were all constructed during this period as new projects, built from scratch by municipal crews operating under city contracts. What the official history does not explain is what those crews kept finding before they could build anything. The Philadelphia Bureau of Public Works documented at least 9 instances between 1851 and 1890 in which excavation crews broke into existing subterranean passages that were not on any city survey and not attributable to any prior construction project. In every case, the standard entry in the official record is the same phrase, pre-existing structure of undetermined origin. In every documented case, the structures were sealed. Dr. Samuel Ashworth, a civil engineer who held the chair of infrastructure at the University of Pennsylvania from 1879 to 1903, raised this question publicly in a paper delivered to the American Society of Civil Engineers in 1884. He had spent 3 years collecting first-hand accounts from excavation workers across Philadelphia, New York, and Baltimore. He documented what he called a recurring anomaly, subterranean chambers and passages encountered during routine excavation, consistently larger than anything a practical drainage purpose would require, consistently sealed by the municipal authority that discovered them. Ashworth's paper was printed in the Society's proceedings. It was not reprinted. His university did not renew his appointment after 1903. He died in 1907. The paper survives in a single copy held at the Historical Society of Pennsylvania in a folder misfiled under street paving records from 1891. Thomas Delaney was employed by the New York City Department of Public Works when his crew broke through a wall on a tunnel extension project beneath Lower Broadway on the morning of November 4, 1873. Delaney described what he found in a letter to his brother, a letter that survived because his brother preserved it in a family Bible, and it was donated to the New York Public Library's manuscript collection in 1941. Delaney described a chamber roughly 40 feet in diameter, with a ceiling he estimated at no less than 20 feet from the floor to the arch of the vault. The walls were faced in a dark stone he did not recognize. Set into the far wall was a door. He described it as iron or a similar metal, heavily corroded, measuring, and here Delaney's letter is very precise, 4 times the height of a standing man. He and his crew stood in front of it for what he described as near an hour. They did not attempt to open it. A city inspector arrived the following morning. By afternoon, Delaney's crew was working a different section of the project. He was told the chamber had already been assessed and would be handled by a different department. He never went back to that section. Delaney's letter ends with a single sentence about the door. He writes, "I do not know what I expected to be behind it. I know that I am glad we did not find out." In 1878, the United States Army Corps of Engineers conducted a classified survey of subterranean conditions in 12 American cities, ostensibly as part of wartime infrastructure planning. The survey's existence is referenced in 3 separate published histories of Army Corps operations in the 19th century, each noting that the full findings were never released to the public. The portion of the survey that entered the public record through a Freedom of Information filing in 1987 consists of 43 pages out of what the Army Corps' own inventory lists as a 312-page document. The 43 released pages describe standard geological and drainage assessments. The remaining 269 pages are still classified, listed in the National Archives under a category designation that was not used for civilian infrastructure documents. Philadelphia, 1869, a sealed passage of cut stone, 14-foot doors, no drainage function. Patrick Hearn's supplemental report never received. New York City, 1873, a 40-foot chamber beneath Broadway, a metal door of impossible scale. Thomas Delaney's crew reassigned the following morning. Louisville, Kentucky, 1881, workers excavating a basement beneath Main Street broke through a stone floor and descended a staircase leading to a tunnel that, according to the account filed by the construction company's own surveyor, extended beyond the range of our lanterns in both directions. The city purchased the property within 60 days. The construction project was canceled. The surveyor, a man named Everett Coles, gave one interview to the Louisville Courier-Journal before his employer forbade further comment. The interview was published on March 3, 1881. It has not been reprinted since. This is not coincidence. This is a pattern. In each case, the institutional response followed the same sequence. A municipal inspector or army representative arrives within 24 to 48 hours of the discovery. The crew is reassigned or the project is halted. The site is sealed with concrete, with brick, or with a purchased property. The official record reduces the discovery to a single line. The economics are worth noting. The city of Philadelphia paid above market value for 3 properties between 1870 and 1895 that, according to city records, were purchased for sewer access and public utility purposes. None of them were developed. All three sit directly above the areas where pre-existing passages were reported by excavation crews during the same period. But here is what makes this different from every other account of underground construction anomalies. In 1923, a retired Army Corps engineer named Willard Fitch spent the final 4 years of his life writing a 200-page memoir that he intended to publish. He had served from 1878 to 1912, which means he was on active duty the year the classified subterranean survey was conducted. His memoir, according to his daughter in a 1971 oral history interview, mentioned the survey directly and described what was in the parts that were never released. The memoir was never published. Fitch died in 1927. His daughter states in that same interview that the manuscript was collected by 2 men from the government the week after her father's death. She was 19 years old at the time. She said she was told it contained classified material and that its return was not going to be possible. She was interviewed in 1971 for a local historical society project in Richmond, Virginia. The transcript of that interview exists. She died in 1988. If Willard Fitch was telling the truth, then the classified portion of the 1878 survey, the 269 pages still withheld from the public, contains something that the Army Corps of Engineers has spent nearly 150 years deciding the public should not read. The Army Corps of Engineers has never adequately addressed several specific questions. It has never explained why a 312-page survey of civilian sewer infrastructure needed to be classified, and why 269 of those pages remain classified today, long after any conceivable national security application could apply. It has never explained why the 3 Philadelphia properties purchased in the 1870s and 1880s for sewer access purposes were never developed, never connected to the sewer system, and have never been excavated as part of any subsequent city project. It has never explained why the Army Corps' own internal inventory lists the full survey as 312 pages, while the publicly released portion contains only 43, and why the release letter responding to the 1987 FOIA request states that the remaining pages are currently exempt under a classification category reserved for active military operations. Why would a sewer survey conducted in 1878 be treated in 1987 as an active military matter? Why would a 19-year-old girl be visited by federal agents the week after her father died to collect the manuscript of a retired engineer's memoir? Why would a city purchase 3 properties at above market value and let them sit empty for decades? Unless the value of those properties had nothing to do with their surface use? These questions don't go away because institutions refuse to answer them. For the next 4 years after he was removed from his position, Patrick Hearns tried to have his supplemental report acknowledged. He wrote to the city commissioner 3 times. He wrote to a Pennsylvania state inspector. He gave a single interview to a Philadelphia newspaper in 1872, the record of which exists as a clipping in the collection of the Historical Society of Pennsylvania, filed under a category of letters that were received but unpublished. The newspaper never ran the story. Hearns died in 1876 in Pittsburgh. He was 48. The official cause of death was listed as a fever. His widow, in a letter to her sister, wrote that he had been in complete health 3 weeks before the end, and that he had only just finished writing down the full account of what happened in the tunnel. No such account has ever been found. The section of Chestnut Street beneath which Hearns' crew worked in 1869 still exists. The municipal infrastructure maps for that section of Philadelphia show a gap, a section marked with a notation used by the Bureau of Public Works to indicate structure present, classification withheld. That notation appears on the map as recently as the 2019 edition. If you walk down Chestnut Street today and ask anyone at the city's Department of Streets about it, They will tell you it is a legacy notation from the 19th century that no longer reflects anything currently present beneath the road. The 2019 map still shows it there, and 14 feet below the pavement, behind concrete poured 155 years ago, whatever Patrick Hearns measured and refused to stop asking about is still waiting. The official history tells us that American cities were built from the ground up, that every tunnel, every foundation, every underground passage was dug by crews working from fresh plans on undisturbed earth. What the documents, the dismissed engineers, the classified surveys, and the sealed properties tell us is something the official history has never successfully explained. That in city after city, in decade after decade, the crews building the modern world kept breaking through walls into something that was already there. These records do not disappear because they are wrong. They disappear when no one goes looking for them. If this matters to you, subscribe and share this with someone who needs to hear it. History is not buried because it is false. It is buried because someone calculated that it was safer underground. Next week, I am pulling a thread that connects these sealed passages to a specific set of buildings constructed across 14 American cities between 1870 and 1893, buildings whose foundations, according to their own construction documents, were never actually excavated. A name, a single surviving blueprint, and a question that the Smithsonian Institution received in 1901 and has never answered. You will not want to miss it.